Tonight, when it gets dark, step outside and look up at the moon. It has hung there, calm and round, for far longer than there have been eyes to see it. We know it so well that we almost forget to wonder about it at all. But here is a quiet little mystery worth carrying with you, one of the oldest questions our species has ever asked. Where did the moon actually come from? The moon is the steadiest companion we have. It tugs gently on the seas, lifting the tides up and down twice a day, every single day. And by slowly changing its shape, from a thin curved sliver to a full bright circle, it gave us our very first calendar, marking out the months in the sky. Yet for almost all of human history, no one could say where this faithful friend had come from. For a long time, people had three favorite guesses. Maybe the moon was a wandering world that the Earth had captured and held onto with its gravity. Or maybe the young, fast-spinning Earth had flung off a piece of itself, like a clump of clay flying off a potter's wheel. Or maybe the Earth and moon had simply formed together, side by side, out of the very same swirling cloud of dust. Each idea sounded reasonable, and each one, it slowly turned out, had a problem it just could not solve. Then, in 1969, something changed everything. For the very first time, people walked on the moon, knelt down on that soft gray dust, and carried real pieces of it home. Hundreds of kilograms of moon rock came back to Earth, where scientists could finally hold the ancient question in their own hands and study it directly under the light of the laboratory. And the rocks told a strange double story. In some ways, the moon was startlingly like the Earth, made of the very same kinds of rock, sharing a chemical fingerprint so close it was almost a perfect match. But in other ways, it was clearly its own thing. The moon was bone dry, with almost no water inside, and it was missing the heavy iron heart that sits deep down inside our own planet. The moon, it seemed, was both our twin and a stranger. To understand that, we have to travel back about 4.5 billion years, to when the whole solar system was brand new. Back then, our neighborhood was a chaotic, crowded place. Not the calm clockwork we see today, but dozens of half-built worlds, sweeping around the young sun on crossing paths, bumping and crashing, and slowly gathering themselves into the planets we now know. And one of those young worlds, scientists think, was a planet roughly the size of Mars. We have given it a name, Theia, after the Titan who in the old Greek stories was the mother of the moon goddess. Theia may have shared almost the very same path around the sun as the young Earth, circling along just ahead of us or just behind, and two whole worlds cannot share one narrow path forever. So, one day, gently in the slow language of space, but with an almost unimaginable force, the two of them met. Theia struck the young Earth a great, slanting, glancing blow. This is the idea that most scientists now lean toward, the leading explanation by far, and it has a fitting name. They call it the giant impact hypothesis. The crash was so enormous that it melted the outer layers of the Earth and flung a huge spray of glowing rock far out into space. Some of it came from Theia, and a great deal of it came from the Earth itself. For a little while, our planet wore a bright, warm ring, a wide circling disk of molten droplets and rising vapor, glowing softly all the way around it. And out in that ring, something lovely happened. The drifting pieces began to find one another, pulled together by their own faint gravity, gathering into clumps, and the clumps into one. Astonishingly fast, perhaps in only 100 years or even less, the ring quietly became a single new world, our moon, born from the wreckage. Now, this story quietly answers those three old puzzles. The flung-out ring was made from the light outer layers of Earth and Theia, not from their heavy iron cores, which stayed behind and sank deep into the Earth. So the new moon was built almost without any iron at all, and that is exactly what we find, a moon with only a tiny iron heart, far, far smaller than our own. It explains other things too. That slanting blow set the whole Earth and Moon systems spinning together, which is part of why we still turn round once a day. In fact, just after the impact, a single day may have lasted only about 5 hours. The Earth spun fast and dizzy, with a brand new moon hanging close and enormous in the sky, far larger than the gentle one we see now. The moon rocks fit this picture too. Being born from a spray of molten rock, the early moon was wrapped in a deep ocean of magma. As it slowly cooled, the lightest minerals floated up like froth and hardened into the pale bright highlands we can still see tonight. And recent samples gathered for the first time from the moon's far side suggest that ocean of magma once covered the entire moon. So the giant impact is, by far, the leading explanation. It gently ties so many separate threads together, and yet if it were the whole finished, settled truth, scientists would simply have stopped here and moved on. But they have not, because those very same moon rocks are hiding one stubborn little puzzle that nobody has fully solved. Here it is. When two separate worlds form in two different places, they end up with slightly different chemistry, a little like two people having different handwriting. So if the moon really is made mostly from Theia, a whole separate world, it should look at least a little bit different from the Earth, but it simply does not. In test after careful test, the Earth and the moon come out as near-perfect chemical twins, and that, it turns out, is surprisingly hard to explain. Scientists are still gently arguing over how to solve this, and they do have a few good ideas. The first one is wonderfully simple. Perhaps Theia was already very much like the Earth to begin with. If the two worlds grew up close together built out of the same nearby material, then a moon made mostly from Theia would naturally end up looking just like us. Another idea is bolder and rather beautiful. Perhaps the crash was even more violent than we first imagined, so fierce that it vaporized much of the Earth into a vast, glowing, spinning cloud of rock, shaped a little like a puffy donut. Scientists call this strange object a Synestia. Inside it, everything mixed together completely, and then the moon slowly condensed straight out of that same shared cloud, like a single raindrop forming inside fog. And here is a third idea worth keeping. Maybe it was not one single great crash at all, but many smaller ones. A whole long series of impacts, each splashing out a little moonlet which then drifted slowly outward and over time gently merged together. Brick by brick, collision by collision, all those small moons could have slowly built up the one calm moon that we see today. There is even a playful brand new thought that scientists are only just beginning to test. Deep inside the Earth, far below our feet, sit two enormous mysterious blobs of rock, each as big as a continent. A few researchers have started to wonder whether they might be leftover pieces of Theia herself, buried forever in our planet's art. It is far from proven, just a tantalizing maybe, but it is a wonderful thing to imagine. Even the moon's exact age is still being gently worked out. Most of the moon rocks seem to be about 4 1/3 billion years old, and yet other clues quietly hint that the moon is older still. One newer idea is that long ago the Earth's poles squeezed and reheated the young moon, melting its surface and in doing so, resetting the little clocks inside the rocks. So the puzzle kindly and patiently continues. And the story is not even finished yet. Right now, very slowly, the moon is drifting away from us by about the width of a growing fingernail each and every year. Long, long ago it hung much closer and looked far larger in the sky. Far in the future, it will sit a little farther off than it does tonight. Our faithful old companion is still, very quietly, on the move. So step back and think about what all of this might mean. The moon may not be a stranger that simply wandered by one night. It may be a piece of our own world, born out of the most violent single day the Earth has ever known. Out of one tremendous fiery collision came the calm, soft, silver light that has watched over almost every night since. So tonight, when it gets dark, step outside once more and look up. That gentle, familiar face is most likely a long-lost part of the Earth itself, flung into the sky and gathered back together, billions of years ago. We are still piecing the full story together, still arguing kindly over the details. But the next time the moon is quietly watching over you, you can wonder right back at it, and remember that you may just be looking at a little brother of the Earth.